Hi everybody, this is Lina here, and I am here with the weekly update for this week. Again, it is about the middle of January, just going into the end of January, and my biggest challenge for this week has been just managing staff expectations and making sure people get along and maneuvering around personalities and trying to keep everybody happy. With any small business, a lot of times when you have employees, a chunk of your time, it gets carved out from the actual work that you do, and transforms into just playing a mediator between people and making sure that the team is sticking together. And there have been a lot of challenges with that over the last couple weeks that I have been trying to just find the best solution for. And a lot of times when things sort of come to a head, it comes to you as the business owner to kind of figure out what the solution is. And I remember about when I had my first business back in the 90s, I had a web development and marketing firm, and I had grew the firm to about 17 employees. And I remember coming out of that business, I had told myself that I don't ever want to have a business that has that many employees again, just because I felt that a lot of my time, I got into the business because I love making websites. I love producing things that reflect whatever it is that a business is trying to portray on the internet. I like the creative work, and it just seemed like my job, a big portion of my job was dealing with, this person wants their desk by the window and they're upset because that person's desk is over there, or this person talks too loud on the phone. And, a huge chunk of my time was dealing with those types of issues. And coming out of that, for a long time, I avoided having a lot of employees, and I did have people working for me for a long time. I think the person that has been with me the longest has been with me for about 6 years now. But I tried to keep staff to a minimum, just me, maybe one or two other people. But with the growth of WordBotic, it just came to the point where it was unavoidable to hire people to do certain functions that I was accustomed to doing myself. There was one day that I just looked at my email box and I had 5,000 emails. And typically it takes me about, I might be able to process 12 to 20 emails in an hour. So when you do the math, it's just ridiculous the time that it would take to go through that many emails and serve all those people. And it's always my intention to make sure that everybody gets served, even if it's late or if it's delayed. I still want to make that effort to reach out to everybody. And even to this date, that was about 8 months ago when we dealt with that massive flux of people. We still have hundreds of people that are waiting for one thing or another, and we're just getting through them one at a time. The challenge lies in balancing training staff as well as doing the actual work when they are equipped and able to do it. And on top of that, just juggling the conflicts that come up along the way. And it just felt like the last week or two, I've just been dealing with a lot of conflict resolution among my team, and that happens, and it's a part of business. And you really just come to a point where you have to make a decision as to how far you are willing to go to retain people. And I make a big investment in the people that work for me because there's a big learning curve. As many of you know that use my software, it takes a little while to get the hang of it. So from a staff perspective, having to learn the software, there's an investment of time that I make with my people. So a lot of times I'm bending over backwards trying to make sure people are happy and are getting what they are trying to get out of working for me. And a lot of that is listening to people and just making sure that I understand what it is that they want so that I can do my best to fulfill that. So that was my biggest challenge, I think, this week. I also have been adding new people on. I have a new person that I just brought onto my team who has been great. My biggest challenge, as I had mentioned in my last video, was juggling my personal responsibilities with my business responsibilities. As many of you know, I'm a mother to a special needs little girl, and it takes up a lot of time having to juggle her medical care on top of all of her needs as it relates to school, and mixing everything at home and school, and then also trying to work in between all of that. It's a constant juggling act. And I used to have a nanny years ago, and she was great. She is great. She still works for me from time to time. She ended up moving to where it was it was prohibitive for her to come to my place every day. And with as attached as my daughter became with her, I was really apprehensive to hire somebody to help me on that front. So I was juggling everything myself. Just finally, about a week and a half ago, I brought on somebody that has been helping me on the customer service side as well as on the domestic side. And it's very unconventional. It's an arrangement that is, nobody would even think of that as being an arrangement. He stays at my guest house, so he's at my place basically 24/7. He works through the week from early morning, from 8 o'clock in the morning, all the way up until sometimes 11 or 12 at night. And then on the weekends, he has another thing that he does, so it's Monday through Friday, though I have that relief. And he helps me with my customer service, coordinating different things that need to be done among my team, as well as sort of playing a role as a nanny, working with my daughter, getting her to school, getting her lunch together, making sure that her lunch is at school on time, picking her up from school, doing homework with her, and that frees up so much of my time. And while I'm working with my daughter, during the downtime that I have with my daughter, I'm able, since he's also working on the customer service end, we're able to just handle different customer situations during my downtime, or while I'm cooking dinner. We address things. He sits with his tablet at my table and we figure things out. And it just feels like slowly things are coming together on that end. So a lot of people have been asking me, when is WordBotic coming out of beta? It's been in beta for a year. What is the momentum that's going to be happening on it? Some of the work that I've been doing has not really been visible to people, so people want to see what is going to happen next. When are we going to get to 1.0? And I think for many technology companies or software projects that are in that beta stage, it's a huge challenge just making sure that everything is at that point where you could be at 1.0, where all the bugs are worked out, where the product is completely polished to where it can be marketed as a 1.0 product. And what I had I've been working on it on and off, while juggling all of the customer support work that I had been doing over the last 8 months, which included building a whole completely customized system to manage my support that caters around all of the things that WordBotic customers specifically need. I think that though I was kind of working on WordBotic in between all of that, between my team, and my team also is like, we have to do more development updates. We have to get momentum on that front. There's two ways to go about it. I could just work on it bit by bit, kind of like what I had been doing, or I kind of have all the stages mapped out of everything that I need to do and everything that I want to do. A lot of times when I'm coding, a lot of the other projects that I create, like the master programs from Memoir Master, Choice Master, Mind Map Master, a lot of times I talk about it. Those are much smaller projects in terms of the complexity of coding that's involved. But I always refer to it as I'm going into my cave. Which basically means that I'm coding. I'm kind of in a zone. I make sure that everything for my daughter is handled and that I take little breaks to spend time with her, but outside of that, I'm basically just in my zone and in my cave, as I call it. For a lot of the other projects that I've done, I might be in my cave for maybe a few days, and that has been sufficient to get me to the point where I need to be. For what I need to do for WordBotic, I had kind of estimated out everything that I need to do and how long it's going to take me to do it. And it's going to be like 2 months, which, being in a cave for 2 months, I mean, sometimes when you're in your cave, you don't really eat properly, you don't shower, because you're basically coding, and you want to make sure that everything is being done. And once you start coding, any coder will tell you, once you start, it's sort of hard to stop, because to pick up where you left off and have to reacclimate yourself with wherever it was that you left off, it's difficult. It's difficult to do things on and off. So, with some things you can, as it relates to coding, but for the most part, you just want to just plug in and get it all done. So what I'm trying to do is carve out blocks of time. I don't think I could do 2 months straight in a cave, but I could probably do like a couple weeks and then take a break for a week, and then a couple weeks and then take a break for a week. But the biggest challenge is I have to make sure that everything with customer support is tight, and that we have our team is not at the point where they're needing so much out of me in order to fulfill the things that they're trying to do with the customers. And we're close to that point. I'm really excited to be able to say that we're close to that point, to where we're going to have really tight customer support. But we're not quite there yet. So in terms of an outlook, I am shooting for the summer to be at 1.0, and it looks like, if things go as planned, that we are going to be able to achieve that. So one of the things that everybody has been asking is what they will see next in terms of development on WordBotic. And the very next thing that I'm looking to implement, which I've already been working on it, is I want to, a lot of the questions, like right now there's 57 questions that are that are required within the software to answer. And some of the questions, there's a little bit of redundancy, because it asks you to put in the different verb tenses. So for example, with my example of running a marathon, that would be one question. Then it'll ask you to put running a marathon into present tense, which will be run a marathon. So I'm trying to automate that process of editing the verb tenses. So that'll almost cut the questions to about 2/3 of what it is now, almost half of what it is now, which will make the experience for the user much swifter and easier, because there won't be as many questions to answer. It will also run one of the biggest problems that we find with the content, whenever anybody asks us to review the content, to look at what they might have done wrong, almost, I would say 80% of the time, there are issues with verb tenses, and that the phrases don't begin with a verb. And that's one of the ways that I'm going to be able to validate that information, because if I'm able to identify that first word as being a verb and then automatically update the tense to where it needs to be, then it will also provide a method of validating that the information was put in the way the software is expecting it to be. It sounds easy. A lot of times people are like, well, just take the ing off the verb. But then there are verbs such as the word take, T-A-K-E. If you just take ing off of taking, then you end up with T-A-K. English is a very complex language, and the conjugations of verbs they vary. And, to build a database of every verb in the English language, that sort of is something that I've been working on. There are some ready-made databases, but then, what I have found is that they don't encompass every verb. It's going to be something that I want to launch first so that I can identify any issues that may come up with someone trying to use a verb that may not be in our database, so that I can build a system where those verbs are added or flagged so that I can make sure that they are implemented into our system so that there aren't any issues with conjugating when the conjugating process happens behind the scenes. A little bit technical there, but that's what I'm working on next. So on the front end, what you can expect to see is that the number of questions will be lessened by 2/3, and there will be alerts that come up when the inputs that you put in are not quite what the software is expecting. So that's been a project. It's been taking some time to do because there are about 9,000 verbs in the English language, and I know this just because I've done the research. And having to manage 9,000 verbs, and a lot of the verbs are kind of obscure verbs. I did break it down to 3,000, which are supposed to be the most commonly used verbs. So now what I'm going to do is do a cross-reference of every verb that has ever been used in the software to make sure that it's in my pool. And if it's not, then that means that I have to kind of look at my database and expand it and try to figure out what where that threshold is. So that's a little bit of tech talk on what I'm doing and what you can see next, but in a nutshell, there will be less questions. Yay! Well, thank you very much for watching my weekly update. I'm looking forward to updating you more next week. Let's hope that we have some solid momentum, and I'm sure I will have some great things to report. Thank you very much.